What's good, everyone? OJ here. Welcome back to another video. Today we've got some awesome information when it comes to Metroid Dread and the Switch effect. We're getting some hard numbers with the game and how it's breaking records across the board when it comes to Japan. So before we get into all that, please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, and click that notification bell to get my videos first. Now let's go ahead and jump into this here. Metroid Dread in Japan. We've all been waiting for some hard numbers. I know that we're waiting for Nintendo to discuss this probably in the next couple months or so, but Japan, with the Famitsu sales numbers, we actually get them. Unlike the UK or other regions, Japan actually gives us the numbers. We don't have digital, so that's unfortunate, but it's actually a positive pertaining to what we're going to discuss here and how this game has sold, because Metroid Dread has broken some records and there's some impressive statistics, including this game Metroid Dread in comparison to the franchise before. So in the past week's Famitsu sales, this is for the last 3 days or so of sales. It's not the full, week about or so that Metroid Dread has been on sale. So it really just counts 3 days from last week, and this does not include digital. Metroid Dread was #1 on the Japanese sales in Famitsu. It sold 87,000 units, right around there, not including digital, and the game is #1 on the eShop. Now, in comparison to the last Metroid game that came out, Metroid Samus Returns, it actually sold 3 times the amount of Samus Returns in its debut sales back in 2017 on the Nintendo 3DS. Now, here's a stat that I find to be absolutely interesting and exactly what I was saying beforehand with the Switch effect and how it's going to affect Metroid Dread on selling way better than any of the previous games. Now, this Metroid game is already, Metroid Dread is already the 5th best-selling Metroid game of all time in Japan. Let's just stop for a second. Already the 5th best-selling Metroid game of all time in Japan after 3 days. That is a very good sign that Metroid Dread is probably going to be the best-selling Metroid game of all time, and I think it's going to be by a pretty good amount based on what we're already seeing here with the debut sales, what we got in the UK, and also what we got here in Japan. Because if it's bigger in the UK than what the previous Metroid games have done, and it's bigger in Japan, you already know in the US, where Metroid is pretty much the queen, right? Metroid sells best in the US. It's going to be very big in comparison to what the Metroid games have done before, but I do have a comparison on that as well too. So if you go back and you look at the previous Metroid games in Japan, we can look at the launch sales comparison. Fusion sold 49,000 units, Zero Mission sold 39,000 units, Prime sold 39,000 units, Other M sold 44,000 units, Prime 3 sold 33,000 units, and Samus Returns, like I already stated, sold 29,000 units, and that was debut sales in Japan, retail only. Now, if you include digital sales, I do have a source, Mr. Dr. Surkan Toto on Twitter. He did state that if you include digital, it was definitely over 100,000 units, which would pretty much double up more than any other previous Metroid game, double up plus more than any other Metroid game, which the previous best was Metroid Fusion on the GBA, but it makes sense that Metroid Dread is doubling up on what Fusion did. So overall, this is absolutely spectacular in comparison to the previous games. The Switch pretty much doubled up on any other ones or tripled up or more, so very good there. And I think that this start is going to propel Metroid Dread to new heights, like I talked about, and like I said, to be the best selling in the franchise. But it doesn't just stop there when it comes to the sales and what was going on in Japan. The Nintendo Switch OLED actually launched in Japan too, and we've got some hard numbers on that and the Switch in general. Now, overall, the Switch sold about 180,000 units for the past week in Japan, which is pretty good. Obviously much better than any other system, actually better than every single other system on the market with current systems just combined. It's better than all of them combined by a large margin. And also the Nintendo Switch OLED, out of the 180,000, the OLED model sold 138,000 units, which was below the original debut of the Nintendo Switch, which was expected, and also the Switch Lite. But that's the one where people are saying, okay, well, wait a minute, why is it not above the Switch Lite in its debut sales? Well, according to some different sources on there, in terms of Takashi Mochizuki, also Dr. Serkan Toto, David Gibson, they all stated that the chip shortage is what's causing some issues because of the production that Nintendo has to do with the Switch Lite, the regular Switch, and also the Switch OLED. And on top of that, there was lotteries in Japan. So it's not even like there's extra systems out there that are just sitting on store shelves. They pretty much sold out of all the stock that they put out on the market. They just had trouble producing as much as they could to actually meet the demand with everything, because there were lotteries for people to try to get a Switch OLED, and it's not like you can just walk into stores all over the place and find them. So that was the reason for that. But either way, 138,000, that's still a very good debut for a revision hardware, one of the best that Nintendo's done so far. And it really goes back to what I stated with Metroid Dread. It's the fusion, no pun intended, of new hardware also with an exciting game, putting those two together, and also trying to market more so than you've done at any other point with it. That's the reason why Nintendo's had sales here that's better than Fusion, better than Zero Mission, better than Prime, better than all these other games in the series, and also the 5th best-selling game of all time, Metroid game of all time in Japan already. It's the reason why. It's the Switch effect. That's what's making it, go to just such new lengths. It's not that people are all of a sudden way more interested now than what they would have been before. It's the combination of factors and marketing that gets you better results. There's been no other Metroid game in the history of Metroid games that's ever been advertised this hard, that's ever been advertised this much, and has been paired with new hardware. When was the last time that you saw Nintendo pairing a Metroid game with brand new hardware as potentially the flagship title for this new piece of hardware? It's never happened. I can't remember another time that Nintendo's done that. Now, there's been times Nintendo actually tries to push the game with the hardware that's already out, but they use something else. But I've never seen for any type of revision or any type of re-release that Nintendo's been doing, they ever push a Metroid game with it. So to launch it with the Metroid game was big, and we're seeing the results here. Even in a region that doesn't like Metroid as much, we're seeing that there is more success. And like I stated before, it also goes back to the whole thing with how gamers don't have to buy two separate versions. So if someone already purchased a Metroid game on a home console, and another Metroid game comes out on a portable or vice versa, some of them might be thinking, okay, well, I got my Metroid fill. I'm going to spend my money on something else. So I'm going to buy a different game when it comes down to it, because I already bought this game or that game on this piece of hardware. Now with the Nintendo Switch, it's like, okay, well, I get both of my versions. I get my portable version and I get my home console version. So I feel a bit more comfortable purchasing this game. So that is a big factor, and that's the reason why you see it time and time again. Shout out to my man NC Smasher on Twitter. He put up a graphic showing off all the different games or all the different articles that have actually shown that the Nintendo Switch has boosted the series to new heights. The Nintendo Switch has actually made it to where it is the best selling in the franchise, from The Legend of Zelda to Xenoblade Chronicles 2, Fire Emblem, Three Houses, Pikmin. It's a common reoccurring theme with the Nintendo Switch, and it's occurring here once again. We know that in the UK, that's what happened with the sales. We know that here in Japan now, we've got a confirmation that it's the fastest selling Metroid game of all time. It's the 5th best selling game of all time in the Metroid franchise, and that it's breaking records there. So the US is even going to be more interesting, in my opinion, because of just how much people love Samus and the Metroid franchise more here than anywhere else. And this definitely is going to put Metroid on a higher tier when it comes to it, especially leading into what Metroid Prime 4 is going to be. This is definitely going to be the boost that the series needs, because Metroid Prime 4 has the utmost potential, has the big potential to actually break into a potential 7-8 million unit seller on the Nintendo Switch. It really does, if it can knock it out of the park. I think that Metroid Dread is the beginning of it. We have the history with how good Prime games have been. We know that Nintendo's gearing up, but this is just the start when it comes down to it. Super high quality 2D Metroid game. But in the history of Metroid games, for the most part, the Prime games have usually done better, with Metroid Prime 1 in particular. That's the best selling Metroid game of all time. Now, some of the other Metroid 2D games have actually done better than the other Prime games, Prime 2 and Prime 3, but I think that that will change. I think this is going to go back. If they can kind of reinvigorate where they got from the original Metroid Prime and reinvent and also innovate within the Switch hardware, I think that that can actually be the catalyst to be the next best selling Metroid game of all time, after, of course, Metroid Dread here, because this is just fantastic to see the Switch OLED doing so well in addition to the Metroid Dread. And you guys know, like in Japan, definitely portable play is huge, so that OLED screen was definitely something that was very appealing along with this new game as well. And just like the speed, the type of game that Metroid Dread is, I think that it really just fit the hardware and it fit what was going on, and that's why you got these sales results that are here. And I'm happy for the team, I'm happy for Mercury Steam, I'm happy for Nintendo, happy for the employees, all that good stuff. It's cool to see that, and of course I'm happy for the fans because we've been waiting for this for 20 years. So it's very good to see the return of Samus, the return of Metroid, and be back not only in a good positive reviews wise, but also sales wise. So when you know that there's a future for this franchise, because Metroid Dread is absolutely phenomenal. It's one of the best games that I've ever played, and I'm almost positive it's like my favorite Metroid game of all time. I'm right near the end of the game. So awesome stuff there. So what are your thoughts when it comes to Metroid Dread, the sales, and also the Nintendo Switch OLED and what's going on there? Let me know in the comment section below. All right, guys, that wraps it up for this video here. Thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate it. Please make sure you hit that like button if you forgot to do so. Hit that subscription if you're someone new. Click the notification bell, and we'll see you for the next video. Peace.